In the heart of a bustling business district stood the glass towers of Heir Group, a powerful mid-tier conglomerate in the city. Its reputation for sharp deals and ambitious leadership came largely from one name, Vivian Heir, the young CEO who had taken over her late father's empire and grown it with unrelenting drive. Among the busy employees who hurried across the marble-lined lobby each morning, one figure seemed to slip easily through the noise. Lucien Cross, 28, tall, silver-haired, dressed in tailored suits that were elegant but never ostentatious. His face was striking, clean-cut features, silver-gray crescent-shaped eyes that held a calm intelligence. Yet his presence was oddly understated. What did stand out, if anyone cared to notice, was the small glint at his left ear, a single, slender silver earring, shaped like a crescent moon, dangling slightly whenever he turned his head. Most of his colleagues thought it was just a personal fashion choice. No one in the company realized that the quiet analyst sitting in the back row of meetings had a lineage that could shake the foundations of their city. That morning, the boardroom was alive with the rustle of papers, the soft hum of the projector, and the polite, almost forced laughter that followed one of the senior director's remarks. Lucien sat near the end of the table, hands folded loosely, his expression as unreadable as ever. Vivian swept into the room just as the discussion turned toward a new market acquisition. Every step of hers radiated confidence, the cut of her dark emerald suit, the sharp arch of her brow, the slight smile that always looked more like calculation than warmth. Her gaze skimmed over the directors and staff and barely lingered on Lucien. No one here knew that for over a year, the two of them had been in what the tabloids would call a relationship. But it was a secret one, at Vivian's insistence. To the outside world, and often even within the walls of Heir Group, Lucien was simply another member of the analyst team, useful for his numbers and quiet diligence. As the meeting progressed, a few directors questioned the risk in the new acquisition plan. Lucien finally spoke, his voice even but steady, presenting a series of projections that highlighted weaknesses in the proposed strategy. There was a brief silence, and then Vivian's voice cut through it, cool and measured. "We appreciate the numbers, Mr. Cross, but business isn't run on spreadsheets alone. We need leaders with presence, not just statistics." A few directors chuckled politely at her remark. Lucien only inclined his head slightly and said nothing more. To an outside observer, it might have looked as if he were simply meek, but if one watched closely, the tiny crescent at his ear swayed with the subtle movement of his head, catching the light like a quiet witness to the moment. No one in that room knew who Lucien truly was. To them, he was a reserved young man with a knack for data and financial models. But in truth, he was born into the Cross family, one of the wealthiest and most influential dynasties in the nation. The Crosses owned not just corporations, but industries. Their decisions could sway markets. Yet the Crosses had a custom as old as the family itself. Every child of the next generation was sent out, often in their mid-20s, to live and work away from the family name. No special privileges, no safety nets. The rule was simple: temper yourself in the world, prove your worth, or fade quietly into obscurity. Lucien had left the Cross estate 3 years ago, bringing with him nothing but his education, his mind, and the plain, silver crescent earring he had worn since he was a boy. To the elders of the family, he was now in the crucible. Whether he would rise to inherit a portion of the vast Cross empire depended entirely on how he weathered the trials ahead. Vivian Heir had once been intrigued by Lucien's quiet intelligence and steady presence. But as her ambitions sharpened, so did her view of him. To her, Lucien was a convenient companion in private, someone who listened, never argued, never outshone her in public. She told herself that their relationship needed to remain hidden to avoid office gossip and political risks. But deep down, part of her saw him as less, a man who lacked the ambition and charisma she believed necessary to stand at her side at the top. Lately, her attention had drifted more and more toward Damien Voss, the charming heir of the Voss family, a name with wealth and status that could rival even the Hale legacy. Damien's boldness in the boardroom, his effortless charm at charity galas, and the way he made others defer to him, all of it appealed to Vivian's hunger for influence. That evening, the city skyline glowed in shades of gold and violet as the sun sank behind the glass towers. In the quiet office, most of the staff had left. Lucien stood by the window for a moment after shutting down his laptop, looking out at the streets below. He was not brooding. His gaze was calm, steady, as if measuring not just the horizon, but the path he would need to walk. In his phone lay unread messages from his family, subtle inquiries from an uncle about his progress, a brief note from his younger sister reminding him to stay true to himself. He scrolled past them without replying, then slipped the phone into his pocket. The camera of the mind's eye would linger on the crescent-shaped earring as it caught a final glint of the fading sunlight. To the world of Hale Group, he was just another quiet employee. To Vivian, he was a man to keep at arm's length, useful but dispensable. To Damien Voss, he was barely a presence worth noticing. None of them knew that the quiet analyst they dismissed was in fact a Cross, that behind his still, observant eyes lay a mind trained not only to understand numbers, but also to navigate the storms of power. The silver crescent at his ear was to them only an accessory, but to Lucien it was a reminder of who he was, of the tradition he was bound to, and of the trials he still had to endure before he could claim his place among his family's heirs. And so the first chapter of Lucien's quiet life in the Hale Group drew to a close, while the first threads of betrayal and ambition began to weave themselves around him.
Thank you for sharing this chapter with us at Velvet Chapters Brew. Follow, like, and subscribe to see where the next page takes us.